Well, we're a couple minutes late, thanks Zoom, but we're here. Hey everyone, this is Melissa Brannan with the Louisiana Food Prize, and we are so excited to be back this month with another installment. And I am so excited to bring my guest up today. But first, we are going to thank our sponsors, because how can we do what we do without them? So a big thank you to Karen and Cassidy Phillips, to The Cottage, to Eagle Distributing, Elizabeth and Alex Kennedy, Gregory and Heidi Kallenberg, to the Remington Suite Hotel and Spa, to Rosestone Wealth Advisors, and to the Ross Lynn Charitable Foundation. Super appreciate you, and thanks for the support. We love it. And thank all of you for being here with us today. I would say he needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. I am so excited to have with me here Jim Barron. If you didn't have a chance to join us last year, we spoke with Jim. He's a restaurant owner, a restaurateur with years of experience in the industry. And we had the chance to sit down with him last year, really kind of maybe 3 months into the lockdowns and pandemic. And I said, I'd love to catch up with Jim and see what this last year has been, because we had such a great discussion. So we're back. He is here with me. Jim, welcome.
Welcome to you as well. I'm excited to be here. It's been a crazy year.
Yeah, it really has, hasn't it? But we are thrilled to have you back. You want to give people like a quick and dirty bio for those who have who may not know you, who weren't smart enough to tune in last time?
Well, I don't know if how they would know me. My wife and I own Blue Mesa Grill, and we started the concept and the company 33 years ago, 1988. It's a contemporary Southwestern full-service concept. We also own a smaller footprint venue called T&T Tacos and Tequila. We've probably opened in the 33 years and closed 25 restaurants. So we've done a lot of different things. We're a very large caterer in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. I'm a psychologist by background. I have a PhD in counseling psych. I worked for Pepsi at Taco Bell. Developed their national training program, went to El Torito, full service Mexican concept, worked there as VP of Ops Support, and got the opportunity to acquire some restaurants with no money. And, had a bunch of restaurants, El Torito restaurants, losing money and needing to convert to more topical concepts. And one of them was Blue Mesa, and as they say, the rest is history. We were successful with that concept and have developed it. And like a lot of people in restaurant business, people from the outside think everything has stayed the same with Blue Mesa, but it's been an evolving brand over the year, where philosophically it's always adapt or die, and, to constantly change with trends. Lately, though, the pandemic was a tectonic thing. So,
well, yes, I kind of want to maybe go back a little bit to our conversation that we had last June. If you can believe it, it's been a full year, and I can only imagine what a year has been like this past year. One thing that you said during that time was that you were working harder than you had ever worked before. Thinking of either new ways to package your food or how to deliver food to folks, not necessarily like a delivery car, but how you're getting the food to people, how to streamline and make your business more efficient, how to work with vendors, your landlords, etc. Do you still feel the same way?
Well, no. We were lucky in that we were able to get PPP funds and rescue funds. So, the financial strain that we were feeling is over. And the restaurants are back, doing almost the same volume that they were doing in 2019, maybe 85%, 90%. But we also cut our costs tremendously. So we're actually more profitable now than we've ever been. And we just, you know, we've made a number of major changes and will continue to make them. So I don't know. I'm working as hard, but I feel more enthusiastic about where we are than I've ever felt before. I mean, I really feel energized by what's happened. And, you know, a lot of cliches in a sense, but, you know, for every problem, there's an opportunity. And you just have to look at for what those opportunities are and take them. And I can talk more specifically about that.
Oh, we
But
will.
I think it's you if people are holding on to the past and regretting what they've lost, they will fail. You can't be what you were. And anyone strategically that is attempting to be what they were, I think is a mistake. You really have to reinvent yourself right now in a lot of different ways to be successful, particularly with technology, which I can again talk about specifically. But you know, we are permanently changed as an industry. I mean, there's no question. The consumer, the restaurants, the just everything. We are a changed industry, and again, those that figure it out will be very successful, and those that don't will be gone.
Yeah. Well, let's get into some of the specifics. I mean, let's talk about ways that you've started evolving Blue Mesa Grill and TNT Tacos and Tequila, your other concept. You know, last year when we spoke, you said that like the whole paradigm was kind of shifting and how you thought about these restaurants. You know, at the time, you said that, you know, instead of kind of a traditional restaurant kind of standalone, that you were moving more to catering being kind of that primary model, and really your core customer was no longer the individual coming in, but you're really looking to groups as your core customer. Is that still the case, or
Even more so, even more defined. Let me put it this way. I am sure there will be more full service restaurant concepts that are successful. But I believe that's the anomaly, not the norm. The full service restaurant of the past, where you open your doors and you had lunch and dinner and a bar, and you did happy hour, and you had, you know, good lunch business and good dinner business and a solid happy hour and some parties. I believe that formula is over. And if that's what you're relying on, you're in trouble. You have to develop other revenue streams. And there are a lot of them. There are ghoster kitchens where you start doing virtual brands out your back door. There's to go and delivery. There's catering. And then when in terms of catering is not just one thing. I mean, catering is wedding and banquet business. Catering is pharmaceutical lunches. Catering is corporate. Catering is residential. There are a lot of different avenues, and it's definitely one of the differences is you're going out and getting business. You're not. You know, you take an old school operator. You know, starting with the McDonald's concept of QSC, quality, service, and cleanliness. The way I was brought up within Taco Bell and El Torito is if you run a quality operation, you have great food, terrific service, and a clean environment, the customer will come.
Mm-hmm.
That's not enough anymore. You have to go and get that customer. So for us, we have become a catering company built on an infrastructure of restaurants. So what does that mean? So I've got a restaurant and it's doing a certain amount of sales. Let's just say that I'm doing a base sales in a 7,000 square foot restaurant of $2 million.
Mm-hmm.
My lunch business has suffered over the years. Why? I'm just talking about me. I'm talking generically.
Right.
You've got Whole Foods. You've got all of the delivery businesses, Grubhub and DoorDash and Uber Eats. You have convenience stores that now have fresh food. You have gas stations that have decent food. You've got all of the fast casual concepts, Chipotle, Payway, La Madeline, Panera. Everybody's taking a piece of that business. And then the millennial customer is no longer driven by a chronological lunch. They're sitting there, on a laptop or on their mobile with one hand and eating a salad from Whole Foods from another. So they're not going to lunch from 12 to 1 like maybe people did in the 70s, 80s, and even 90s. That just going out to a full service restaurant for lunch is not there. So anyway, you're doing $2 million in base sales. Your lunch business has dropped. That's why you're doing 2 million, not 2.5. What catering brings for us is that we leverage that infrastructure. We're not paying more rent. We're not hiring more managers. We hire a salesperson. You've got to have catering infrastructure, which is not nothing in terms of software to bring, whether it's Caterees or Total Party Planner or one of the catering softwares. And I'll get into some of the challenges with that. But, so you have some expense there, but you don't have more management. You don't have more rent or occupancy cost. And in a lot of ways, you don't have any more kitchen labor because, if the minimum amount of people you have in the kitchen, let's say, is 2, no matter how little lunch you do, and the maximum you typically have, let's say, is 4 or 5 doing $2 million of sales. Again, if you're doing $5 million of sales, different story, but just use my analogy of the 2 million. So you have, say, 2 people in the kitchen on the slow days, 3 people most of the time, 4 and 5. Well, I can do double the sales with 4 or 5 people in the kitchen. And so my kitchen labor doesn't go up as a dollar, and as a percentage goes down as I add sales. So I do catering sales, let's say of $10,000 in a week. That instead of dropping 15% to the bottom line, it drops 30% or 40% to the bottom line because I've had all of those other costs haven't gone up. So now my restaurant, instead of doing, say, 10% profit, now is doing, 22%. Then if I have an event center, which I do in Fort Worth, built over my restaurant, and I rent out that space for $5,000 on a Saturday or $5,000 on a Friday or even $8,000 with more popular places, that drops probably 80% to the bottom line. Again, no more occupancy cost. I mean, I've spent something on the room, but assuming that was in my initial rent, I don't have many more management. Again, maybe a salesperson, the catering person renting out the space. Now I have another. So all of a sudden my profit margin goes to 30%. And even better is the people coming in for those events, the weddings and the quinceaneras and the corporate lunches, they stumble back over Blue Mesa in the process. And Blue Mesa has a good reputation, but we're not a new restaurant. Again, when I said back at the beginning, you can't rely on your past, part of our discussion at some point, why can't we be a hip, cool restaurant anymore? Well, you're not going to be 30 years old, a hip new restaurant. Younger people are going to go to new places. But if they came in for a wedding or a bar mitzvah or a celebration of a non-for-profit, and they come into Blue Mesa and we've done a good job QSC wise, they're going to say, we used to go to Blue Mesa. It was great. Why don't we go anymore? I don't know. We should maybe go there for lunch or maybe check it out for happy hour. So all of a sudden, the catering and party business becomes a marketing vehicle for the restaurant. And now the restaurant begins to pick up sales, affinity groups meeting there for lunch, a CEO group, that maybe we catered to, and we go and talk to them again. You can't just assume this will happen, but you say, hey, do you guys meet? Yeah, we meet once a month. Where do you meet? Oh, we're meeting at some crappy place or in a hotel. Hey, we could host your lunch. Well, how much would it cost? We'll give you the place for free. You don't have to do anything. If you want lunch with us, we'll feed you lunch. If you want to come at a non-time, you can buy some drinks. But if you just want the space, we'll give it to you. Oh, we'd love that. And so we have a conference room in our restaurants. They come in, they have their thing. And again, so those parties, you could book an affinity group, a CEO group, a speakers group, a charity group, whatever, a Boy Scout group, of managers, a bank directors group, they all meet, and you have them, a group like that meeting every day because they all meet once a month. Your restaurant is half full with these groups, rather than people walking in the door looking for lunch. So that's what I'm talking about as adapt or die. It's like you come up with alternate ways to build revenue. For us, it's catering and focusing on groups. Somebody else might be focused on to go. Somebody else might be wanting to do a ghost kitchen and work with a group to, if they're a barbecue joint, maybe they start doing, some kind of slider sandwich deal for to go, or wing places are now doing thigh, a thigh concept. Chili's is doing a chicken wing concept out their back door. You pick something that fits your kitchen. You don't start doing Chinese food if you're a Jewish deli. I mean,
Be ambitious.
You pick something that your kitchen staff can do using the same equipment, even maybe some of the same recipes. And you do the virtual brand. Okay, so that's one angle. The other angle, which we're still dealing with, is social media. And it's complicated. And it's complicated because it's not an issue of just sending out posts on Facebook and Instagram. It's the user experience. So they come into our website or through their mobile device. And a lot of people do all their transactions now with this. So we want a person to find Blue Mesa this way. So if they're dining at the restaurant, ultimately they can come in, pull up the menu on their phone, order, and pay. If the same person wants to order to go, they need to be able to go on the website. It will link them to the website, take them very quickly to a menu. They're able to order, they're able to pay. And now we have a system through a company called Zuppler, where then DoorDash delivers those meals for $7 to a customer. So if they order 200 Mesa boxes for lunch, we don't have to deliver it. It's $7. And now we've leveraged this distribution channel, DoorDash, who's looking for alternate revenue sources. And we've got this whole revenue stream that way. Now, a lot of people don't want to just go online and order without talking to somebody. So we have to structure it so they go and they go, oh no, I want to talk to somebody at Blue Mesa. So the challenge is making the customer journey as simple as you can and as user-friendly as you can. So many of us are working on advertising, but then when they come to us, it's a cluster how they use us. It's either time consuming or it's confusing or you fill shit out and it doesn't work, or you have to, it's like going to a doctor's office and every doctor you go to, you have to fill out something.
Right.
You go, why don't they share this effing information? Why wouldn't they, every single time I have to write my birth date down Well, a little bit our websites are like that ordering, So, imagine you go to a place and they, and it goes, hey, Melissa, nice to see you again. Do you want to order the fajita lunch for your group again? And hey, we've got a new fat-free chocolate brownie dessert that you liked last time. You want us to add that on for another buck a customer. So, we're at the point with technology that's possible. So that's one, the user experience. But then how does it tie to your POS system?
Mhm.
And then how does it tie to the kitchen? And then how does it tie to your accounting system? And how does it tie to your loyalty system that you want to have for your customer? How does it tie to your labor scheduling system?
Your
So you have all these things out there, hot schedules, Aloha, different POS systems, different online systems, Chow Now, Zuppler, Cater, whatever the Cater site is. And then, so now what we have is screwed up because somebody comes into Total Party Planner, our catering site, and we use that for them to do a catering.
Mhm.
We have to mechanically enter that into Aloha. It
Got
doesn't integrate.
Mhm.
And the problem with that is somebody books a catering for 100.
Right.
We write it all up. What's the likelihood when we ring it up, it's different? 100%, right?
Sure.
5 people didn't show up, or they dropped the dessert, they added this, they did that. So then some accounting person has to kind of reconcile, wait a second, it says in the catering software over here that it was a party for 100 for this, but you rang up that, why?
Right.
And it's even worse if you have accounts and you're billing people rather than they pay at the event to get the bill right.
Yep.
Wouldn't
So
it
there's
be
another
ideal
step.
that everything integrated, and that you ring up something in the catering thing, it automatically populates Aloha, and then if you change it on Aloha, it repopulates it over here? Well, the problem is it doesn't, and what we're trying to come up with is what's called an open system that we control, and everything is plug and play. And so that it all integrates together in a simple manner. And that's our next challenge. That's what we're trying to do. We haven't got there. The problem is most POS companies want to control what you do, and they want to be your merchant banker.
Yes.
And so we already have a great credit card relationship. We don't want to give up that business. They'll come in and say, hey, it's only $50 a month per restaurant to use our system. But then they're charging you an extra 3% on your credit cards.
Right.
And all of a sudden your credit rates go up. And that system that they have is a closed system. It doesn't integrate with any, they'll say, we can do everything.
Right.
You can
Except.
order, you can do this, you can do that.
Right.
But it doesn't integrate with your accounting system if you're using, say, Compete as your accounting system. They go, well, if you use our accounting system, and you go, no, I don't want to use your accounting system. I have an accounting system, so.
Hear that, developers? It's time. This is your chance, right? I mean, to
Well,
find something that integrates all the systems or can kind of.
they're all what's called legacy systems, like Aloha. They're all systems that require you to go to them. If you want to do to go with Aloha,
Uh-huh.
you have to hire them in a sense to do that. You have to give them the information, and it takes about, I don't know, 4 to 6 months before they'll come back to you with it ready.
Yeah.
And then they'll say, and guess what? All of your terminals at your 4 restaurants, so I've got, 30 terminals, are all antiquated, and you have to upgrade to the new software,
Sure.
and it's $500 a terminal, so it's
Right.
$20,000 to have the to-go system if you want to do it. And then you look at their to-go system compared to other to-go systems, and it's crappy. It's not as good. It's not as versatile. Aloha goes, well, that's what we got. Take it or leave it. Now you can buy another to-go system.
Sure. I see where this is heading.
But it doesn't integrate with Aloha. And so now the order comes in and they give you another little tablet this new to-go system, and you get it on a tablet, and I got to go from that tablet and ring it up on Aloha. Not ideal, right?
Yep.
And all of that not only is a function of error, it's a function of administrative time. If I have a catering manager that's spending her time or his time on these administrative matters, they're not selling.
Right.
They're sitting with a laptop at a bar going, okay, they ordered this and, and so that's the challenge now is, without question, people are using technology to dine.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have a choice. We have to figure out how we're going to make that work for us. And I feel like that's one of the major challenges we face. I'm excited about it because I think that there's a solution out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been going to a variety of companies to try to deal with it. But it's tough because it's a tech problem on the one hand, it's a marketing problem on the other hand, and it's a restaurant operations problem on the third hand. There's very few companies that deal with all of that together.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you kind of are talking about it. This shift for the customer, like almost the customer experience is starting to change, and how your front of house, how your servers are interacting with the customer. If you have your customer who's now able to, pull up a menu themselves, order what they want from their phone, and also pay. How does that leave you in terms of front of house, in terms of your servers? Is the role of the server kind of shifting? Are you able to work with a leaner team out front?
Theoretically, we're not there yet technologically, so we haven't changed really that much because we're not at the point where people are doing that. But yes, theoretically, if that happened, you could work with less people. But I think I would rather, instead of saying less people, I think, again, it's just as I said about the catering person could focus more on sales, the server could focus more on sales and personal service, because
Mm-hmm.
one of the things in the industry is suggestive selling, right? Everybody, says teach the server suggestive selling. But I do a performance management seminar, and my joke in there is we tend to blame employees when they don't perform, and oftentimes we give them conflicting direction and conflicting reinforcement. And one of them is speed of service versus sales, which is, there's one manager saying, here's the goal, man. You got 4 table station. It's turning that station over. The more turns you get, the more money you make. So it's all about speed of service. Get the food out them, drop the check, get the money, get another group in, sell. I mean, turn.
Uh-huh. Turn them and burn them.
Another manager who's more maybe dinner oriented comes in and says, you guys are just, fast and efficient, but you're not very friendly and personable, and you're not going to build sales unless you spend time at the table, read the guest, listen to them, ask them a bunch of questions, upsell,
Mm-hmm.
instead of selling, a silver tequila, sell a reposado. Instead of selling, fajitas, sell, ultimate churrascaritas, blah, blah, blah. Add a dessert, add coffee, add a side dish, all of those things. Well, those are 2 conflicting messages. And if both managers are working together, the employee's probably standing in the bus station shaking. What am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to be faster. I'm supposed to be, sales oriented, service oriented.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if we became more efficient, the idea would be to maximize the sales in a area, because if you look at a server, they're given a territory, and they are basically saying maximize the sales in that territory, like any sales manager. And I think if we could do a better job of giving them ownership of that station and saying maximize that, they would then maximize the sales there rather than reducing the number would be to increase the sales of what they've got and give better service. And one of the reasons I say that is I think it's a competitive advantage because I think service is pretty shitty overall, especially technologically oriented. You know, if you've got, you know, any kind of thing you've bought, it's almost better to buy a new one than to try to get it serviced. You know, I mean, service just is so crappy. And so to me, and that may be unique to me, where somebody else maybe could be more efficient with technology, I would rather be more personable and make that a point of difference. One thing though that you didn't ask is the change in staff.
Yes, well, I mean, it's a huge issue.
The pandemic, I think, has permanently changed staffing and the people that are coming in. And I don't think it's just unemployment. I think that, and I don't, maybe it won't last, maybe it'll go away and it's just a temporary phenomena, but I think we broke a fundamental trust with the employees because they got laid off and they went and did other things. You know, they got unemployment, but a lot of them got other jobs.
Right. Outside of the industry.
Yeah. And then you add the fact that when they had to work for us, they had to wear masks. They had to be concerned about getting sick. You know, they had to do all this sanitizing of everything.
Well, and even for some restaurants, they had to be like the enforcers, right? I mean, some restaurants had folks like, well, you have to go and tell the customer, you know, put on a mask. Like that's a hard position to be in at, you know, $2.13 an hour plus tip.
Exactly. So you're making less money or you lose your job. A lot of people that were promised bonuses and stuff didn't get them. And then we're a little bit like whores when they come back, you know, promising them bonuses up front and doing stuff like that. So I think it created a certain disconnect where they don't really trust us. They realize they could survive without us, that they're not sure they want to deal with the instability of the industry, the changing hours, what the pandemic did. And so we have to figure that out and say, okay, how do we restructure these jobs in such a way to make it work? Not just attract people, certainly that's an issue, you know, whether you know, the whole pay rate and stuff like that. But I think it's more of how we treat people. The industry was, you know, like people always talk about whatever the name of the company now is, but used to be Houston's, that, you know, they had the best service in the industry. And it was sort of this militaristic, you know, there were all these stories that were probably, some of them were apocryphal, you know, made up stuff, you know, the owner coming in and if everybody wasn't dressed perfectly, closing the restaurant down. And, you know, if you didn't bring your shirt and it was ironed perfectly, you know, you were sent home. And this whole sort of militaristic, and essentially where it comes from is that the restaurant environment, we ask for things to be perfect when in the real world, they can't be. I mean, you can't be 100% clean and 100% perfectly groomed and 100% with your fingernails always clean and 100% perfect service, but we demand it. And that is what I think is a challenge now, because I think they're not going to salute to that flag anymore. They're not going to just come in and buy it and say, and you go, this is it. If you don't do this, your side work, you're going home, right. You know? And so
no
how do you
show, no job. All
yeah.
show, you know.
You know, the thought was there were going to be 20 or 30% less restaurants. There was just going to be this, all of the staff available.
Right.
It hasn't occurred.
Challenge in the restaurant industry with not only, you know, finding staff, but also retaining the staff. And I mean, I think we all know how much it costs to have that staff turnover, you know, to have to retrain someone and bring them back in.
My my sister-in-law, who's my older brother died a couple of years ago, his wife, who's in her 80s, I was talking to her and she said, I heard staffing's hard. I said, yeah. She said, I understand. She said that Costco and Trader Joe's do a better job of everybody else in that regard. I said, really? I don't know anything about it. She said, yeah, they give their employees ownership of their departments. And it really resonated with me. And I'm like, wow, what does that mean actually? And I think there's a kernel of truth in there of a solution, which is somehow we have to get it where the hourly employees really are given more of a sense of authority for their areas, and we function more in a servant leadership role of giving them the environment to do that. And I think the fear is, I think everybody tends to have a very negative attitude about hourly employees, that if you just let them do what they want, they would screw everything up and cheat and, steal and, spit in the food there's just this. And I think that attitude is wrong. I think it's the wrong place to start. I think we don't take responsibility for the fact that, well, I'll give you another example. It's really I've told this story a lot, but I like it because I'm the one at fault. So I gave, most of our kitchen staff, if not all of them, are Hispanic. And I gave a lecture, short one, with a guy who could translate, but most people understood me, that our concept in the kitchen was cook to order. And that when the customer came in, ideally nothing would be prepared other than your mise en place, the raw ingredients of things.
Mm-hmm.
And that when the ticket comes in, and let's say it's a grilled steak taco, you'd be throwing the steak on and it's cut in 2 pieces so it cooks within a couple of minutes on a very hot grill. You'd have your pico de gallo, whatever, and
Sure.
A fresh tortilla made that was recently made and held hot, but it was made within the next 15 minutes. And you'd make this perfect taco and out it would go.
Sure.
So I walk in the restaurant the next day, and one of the top cooks is there, and he's doing exactly the opposite. He's got a big pile of meat and a big pile of shrimp and chicken and vegetables, all pre-cooked, and he's working like a short order cook. Not only is it not on the charbroiler, he's got it on the flat top griddle like a short order cook, and he just is pulling it
Taking
forward.
what he gives in. Yep.
Like that. And I start to blow up. I've got all these preconceived notions of, he didn't listen to me, he doesn't care, he's just doing what's easy for him, and all of these thoughts coming in about what an F up he is and how no one listens to me, and a little bit of a martyr thing on my part, like
Like you do.
with all these horrible employees. And one other important fact is that the couple of days before, I changed the menu and I put a taco sampler on the menu. Pick any of our 8 tacos for 2 or 3 tacos, and any of our 8 sides, up to 2 sides, to make your plate. And I made that the feature of the restaurant.
Pretty popular dish, I'm guessing.
Very popular dish.
I kind of feel like I see where this is heading.
So I walked in, I go, and I said, and I say to myself, you've been preaching also servant leadership, that we're responsible for the environment that they're in, the system that governs their performance, the goals, the feedback, the reinforcement, the training. That's our job. The employee, the selection of the employee, that rests on them, their qualities, but all of this rests on management. Don't jump to a conclusion, Jim. Ask. Okay, so Victor, did you hear what I said yesterday about cook to order? And he sort of, a little embarrassed. Yes, Effie. Yeah, that's Effie. I said, what the F are you doing then? And he said, Hefe, have you ever seen the tape on the POS machine? I said, no. He said, look at it. He goes, the print is this big. I can't read that. I said, well, would it help if the print was bigger? He goes, of course. What, yeah, like, are you an idiot? You know, like, yeah, of course. I said, what else? He said, well, if there are different tacos and there's a table and they order the same one, it'd be good if they were grouped together on the ticket rather than each separate order. I'm like, you mean bundle those, say, you know, table of 6, they order these 4 tacos, these 3 tacos, you know, like that. Yes. I said, what if it was on a TV set, a monitor visually, would that be better? That would be fantastic. He said, but there's one other thing. He said, some idiot put a taco sampler on the menu. And I'm like, okay, what? He goes, do you realize how many possibilities that is when you have 8 tacos and 8 sides and they can order 3 of the tacos and 2 of the sides? How many possible combinations that is? And I'm like, I really hadn't thought of it. He goes, every time you get that, you have to modify the order on the POS machine to say, you know, 2 beef tenderloins, this, and then you add all of the changes people make, no onions, no olives, no this and that. He goes, the ticket is that long and you can't read it. How could I possibly make food to order with that system? And I'm like, you couldn't. He said, when you change that, I can cook to order.
Yeah.
And I did change that. I took the top percent. But my point is that that's another example of we blame the employee for our screw ups. And I think in terms of the pandemic and the fact that they've lost trust in us is valid. We
Yeah.
broke a trust with them. And we have to figure out how to regain that trust. And some of it may be in my sister-in-law's comment of how do we figure out giving them ownership for their work. I mean, one of the things we're thinking about is changing our training program where we have a basic program they go through, but then we have a series of modules that they can choose to do, and they'll be on a tablet that they get, and then there'll be interactive stuff they do. Let's just say it was suggestive selling. It may. So here's how you suggestively sell. You know your product, you read your guest, you make suggestions. Here's somebody role playing that, you know, here's a visual of what it looks like. Your job is to practice it today on the floor. You know, bring your manager will work with you, or the trainer on the floor will work with you on these skills. When you're ready, you'll do a mock service with the assistant manager to demonstrate those skills, and then you pass this workshop. You pass a number of these workshops, you become a lead server. What do you get as a lead server? You get to choose the station you work in. You get to work larger parties. You get to be able to work catering where there's higher gratuities. If you're interested in management, it's a series of things you get to be a manager, and maybe higher pay as well. But in a lot of ways, you don't have to raise the pay as if you can give them ways to make more money.
Right.
How they work. Or maybe you do things like they don't have to do side work, or the people that don't do the training do have to do it. And so, you know, I think we need to look at restructuring from an HR side, how we structure those jobs, how we treat everybody. And I think that's part of the puzzle of what the future of the restaurant business is. It's not, you know, as much as we want to change a reputation of, you know, not being, you know, made fun of on, you know, TV about working at Mickey D's, we've had a lot of pretty shitty jobs that we have to figure out how to make better, and how to make more, you know, give those employees more of a sense of pride and ownership and in doing it. And I don't think we've done a great job of that. We need to move away from top-down management to servant leadership that recognizes that the bottom rung that we think of is the top rung. Those employees need to be the basis of the business. They're your brand. And once you recognize that they're the brand, that they're the leaders, and your job is to be a servant to them. That's a tough.
It is a hard, it's a hard kind of mindset to kind of flip. And
it's not just bullshit. I'm sorry. It's not just lip service of, oh, I'm going to do it. And then, it's like, if you're going to cut pay, the first people you cut should be management, not employees.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's an example. I mean,
right.
it's not, you can't fake it. You can't change a culture in an empty promise. I mean, it's got to be a real change, and that's hard because that means you change.
Right. Yeah. A lot of folks, change isn't easy for a lot of folks. But
so
I think
those are some of the challenges that we're dealing with, and like I said at the beginning, I'm excited about it. I mean, I think that it's going to be a different ball game.
Yeah.
But it's exciting. I think the industry needs it. The technological stuff, I think, is a challenge. But, once it works, it's going to be really cool. And I think it will work.
Yeah. The integration is kind of the tricky bit. You do think about like how many different things you're managing, whether it's your labor, your inventory, your sales, your books, and the fact that someone hasn't kind of wrapped their head around making a system that would incorporate all of it, it's kind of staggering.
And grow,
mm-hmm.
And have the ability to grow, so that, you could, so you could tie it to your loyalty system. So when mm-hmm. somebody's ordering this catering, it remembers them and in the loyalty program, so that when you send out you send them to join the loyalty club, and it says, hey, next time you cater, you get 10% off, or you get a free, dessert, or, or we're going to share this information with you. And so it ties to that as well. And that, you build that, we have 150,000, 170,000 chili heads, people that are heavy users on an email newsletter. But getting that out of just email into the online system is a challenge. And that would be, really a cool thing, so that it built up information on the individual. Again, that's the promise of the internet that I don't think has been delivered completely, which is, targeting, so when someone comes in, you say, do you still want that Jack Daniels, or would you like to do that, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of promise of that, but I haven't seen it really demonstrated.
Yeah. Well, I know we're kind of coming to the end, so I kind of want to go out thinking in terms of this. The last time we talked about, you encourage folks, you said, restaurants really are in the driver's seat of the economy, right? I mean, not only is it a huge industry that employs millions, but not only that, but like there's so many people around you that are dependent on you, whether it's your supply chains, your vendors, you have landlords who are dependent upon the rent, depending on your location.
Banks, lawyers, real estate developers, construction companies, musicians, promoters, event planners.
Yes. All of these other industries that kind of are satellites and also are dependent. Do you still feel that you're in the power seat here, that you're in the driver's seat, and that everyone is really gunning for your success? We talked about landlords being willing to negotiate rent because they are dependent on you and are cheering for you. Do you still feel that, or are restaurants still in the driver's seat? I guess, short question.
It's not that I see that we're in the driver's seat. I see that we need to take the driver's seat, which is different.
The distinction.
So that, I'll give you an example, is building a patio behind one of my restaurants, the Plano restaurant. And the government's sort of like this unintelligent monster that can either work for you or against you. So, we're doing this patio and, they tell us we don't need a permit, but they want the planning department, the city of Plano, to look at it. And then the city of Plano says, oh, we've never had the site plan for the whole development. This is this huge development, with high-rise buildings. We've never had that amended, to show all of these things that have been added in order to do your patio. We want an amended site plan with P&Z approval. And we're like, it's ridiculous,
Right.
But, before I would just sort of like scrambled and didn't. This time I called up the senior VP at Granite Properties, my landlord, and I said, you got to call the city of Plano and
Right.
get this done. I'm adding an amenity to the center. I'm spending a lot of money. I'm making it fit the boardwalk, which is their retail section.
Right.
And hey, Lizzie, just keep it down a little bit. Sorry.
It's all right.
So I'm more proactive and more assertive with people and with, the lenders. But there's another piece, is that we got the PP money and the rescue money. And I'm in the CEO group with other restaurant people, and a couple of people said, yeah, I didn't have the time to do it. I didn't want to compete with a bunch of people. And I frankly, my reaction was they were idiots. And I went out, I heard about the rescue money. I went to every seminar on it. I went to several different accounting companies and asked their interpretation of it.
Mm-hmm.
I kept pushing. I realized that the way it worked was they were going to compare 2020 income revenue to 2019, right?
Right.
They would need tax returns to do that. Well, 2020 tax returns aren't filed yet.
Right.
So how are we going to prove revenue? And so I went to NCR, who owns Aloha, our point of sale
Right.
company.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, could you send us our tapes for the year of 2020 and certify them as valid?
Mm-hmm.
And they did. And so sure enough, first of all, I also kept pushing. I said, does anybody have a copy of the application that the SBA is going to use? No, it's not out and it's out. I said, somebody's got to be able to have it. So I got it.
Right.
And so we filled it out in advance, and we looked at all the obvious questions they were going to ask. And we had all of this backup information. We had our tax returns for 2019. We had our P&Ls. We had corporate documents, because my wife owns a majority of the business, which I purposely did in 2018. And Liz is involved and she runs the marketing. But, prior to that, I had majority. I made it so we're a female-owned company because I anticipated that would be looked at favorably.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had all the documents that showed that we were owned by a woman.
Right.
Corporate documents. And then I had the NCR stuff. And we got on that portal. The portal was supposed to open at 11. We knew where the portal was going to be. And so we sat waiting. About 10:35, it opened.
Yeah.
We uploaded all of our information within 10 minutes. And then we anticipated the question. We get the question, how are you going to prove your 2020 revenue? We said, look at the attachment from NCR.
Right.
2 days later, the money was downloaded in our account.
Mm-hmm.
So part of being in the driver's seat was recognizing that opportunity and taking all the steps before it to get it, not just assuming, oh, you can apply and get it. 186,000 restaurants applied that day. They ran out of money, I think, within a half an hour, and then somebody sued, and now the whole thing's shut down.
Yep.
And what can I say? We got it, and it's not an accident. That's all I'm saying. It's because of being aggressive and assertive and saying, look, you got to take the bull by the horns. And what are they going to do, landlord? And it doesn't always work. I mean, we're in a legal dispute with one landlord, but again, we sued them, and when they wouldn't, they attempted to terminate us because of late payment of rent, and we were like, hey, it's the pandemic, and they wouldn't listen, and we just said fine, and we so it's a mindset as much as it is that, and then most of the time. It was an amicable thing of talking to a lender and saying, can we go interest only with the Granite landlord, the same one I'm talking about the P&Z problem with. He basically agreed to no rent at all for 6 months, and then half rent for another 3 or 4 months, and then 75% rent. And then, I basically said, I will talk to you every month. When our sales come back to say 70 or 80%, I'll go back to full rent. And that's what we did. So, I mean, I honored what I agreed to, but I was, assertive in doing that. And I did it with every landlord, and I did it with all our lenders. I was probably 90% successful. And as a result, when we got this money, the rescue money, we were profitable. That money's in the bank.
Yeah.
It's a cushion now.
Right. Which is a luxury for so many.
And there's also this employee retention tax credit that's out there that can mean a lot of money to restaurant people, but they got to pursue it, and it's out there, and there are these opportunities. And I think part of being in the driver's seat is recognizing that the government has acknowledged that we're a big employer. Take advantage of it. We weren't considered before. Now we are. So.
Well, I wish we could. I mean, I know I could keep talking with you all morning.
I hope this was helpful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would say, first of all, thank you so much for hanging out and for talking with us about kind of what's been going on with Blue Mesa and just kind of bigger picture of things. We super appreciate your time, Jim.
Anytime. Love doing it. And I'd say sorry for talking so much, but I guess that was the point.
Yeah, no, bring it. We like it.
I gotta get off, Melissa.
All right.
Take
well,
care.
Hey, thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Thank you to Jim Barron, and we will see you for our next Food Price University. Y'all take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.